Have you ever wondered why sometimes you pray with all your strength, you cry out with all your heart, and yet the heavens remain silent? Millions of prayers rise every single day, words whispered in the darkness, tears falling on pillows, voices trembling inside churches and homes. But here is a truth that shakes the soul. Not every prayer reaches the ears of God, and maybe one of those unheard prayers is yours. Why would the Almighty remain silent in front of your cries? Why would a loving father not respond to his children when they are on their knees? The reality is painful, and deep inside you know it. There are nights when you prayed and felt nothing, days when you begged for a sign, a miracle, a breakthrough, and instead of heaven opening, all you received was silence. Silence that weighs heavier than words. Silence that makes you question your own faith. Silence that makes you ask, am I being ignored by God? Is my prayer not powerful enough? Does God really hear me? And while these questions burn inside your chest, you continue praying, hoping that maybe this time will be different. You repeat the words you were taught. You follow the rituals. You lift your voice. You kneel down. You fold your hands. But still, something feels blocked. Something doesn't move. Something keeps your prayer from breaking through. Think about it. How many times have you seen people praying day after day, night after night, and nothing changes? They pray for healing, but the sickness stays. They pray for provision, but poverty remains. They pray for peace, but their heart is still full of anxiety and fear. And the worst part is that they don't talk about it. They keep smiling in church. They keep singing hymns. But deep inside they are broken because their prayers feel empty. You are not alone. Everyone who has ever prayed knows this hidden pain. The pain of unanswered prayers. The pain of heaven's silence. The pain of not knowing why God doesn't respond. This is a universal wound, a secret that few dare to confess. Because who wants to admit that their prayer is powerless? Who wants to admit that their cries are not being heard? But let me ask you again, could it be that not every prayer is the same? Could it be that God himself refuses to hear certain prayers? Imagine this, the creator of the universe, the one who formed you in your mother's womb, choosing to close his ears to your voice. This thought alone is terrifying, but it also hides a revelation. Because if some prayers are never heard, there must be a reason. There must be a secret that explains why. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're here right now. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. Out of all the videos you could have clicked, you chose this one. Deep inside, your soul knows you need this answer. Your spirit is searching for the truth. You want to know why some prayers fail and why others shake heaven and move the hand of God. So listen closely, because what you are about to discover could change your life forever. From this moment on, you will never see prayer the same way again. And if you have ever felt that your voice was not reaching the throne of God, if you have ever cried and thought he was far away, I want you to stay with me until the end, because in these next few minutes, I will reveal what blocks your prayer and what you must do to finally break through the silence. But before I reveal this secret, I want you to do something powerful. I want you to comment below right now. That was me. If you have ever felt ignored by heaven, write it. Because your story matters, your voice matters, and here we are building a community where no one prays alone. And listen carefully. Stay with me until the very end, because in just a few minutes I will reveal the one truth that can transform your prayer forever. This is not theory. This is not empty religion. This is the hidden key that decides whether your voice reaches heaven or not. If you have ever felt ignored by God, if you have ever cried and thought the silence of heaven was unbearable, then I want you to write in the comments right now. That was me. Don't be afraid. Don't hide it. Your story matters here. Your prayer matters here. Because this is more than a video. This is a community of faith. When you comment your need, you are not just typing words. You are joining a family that believes in the power of prayer that works. And I promise you, every prayer request left here will be lifted before God. We will pray with you and for you, because no one should carry the weight of unanswered prayers alone. So before we continue, take a moment and share your request in the comments. If you need healing, if you need peace, if you need a miracle in your finances, or if you are simply desperate for God's presence, write it down. Heaven moves when faith is united. And while you're here, don't forget to like this video. It tells YouTube to share this message with more people who are struggling with the silence of God. Subscribe and activate the bell, because the next few minutes could change your spiritual life forever. and you cannot risk missing what comes next. Stay connected because the silence will be broken. You prayed, you cried, you shouted in the night, and still, only silence. The silence of God is something that no one wants to admit, but everyone has felt. It is heavy. It is suffocating. It makes you question if your words are even leaving your lips, or if they are dying in the air before they ever reach heaven. There is a mother who spends night after night on her knees, begging for the healing of her child. She whispers prayers while holding tiny hands. She sings hymns to drown out the sound of hospital machines, and yet the sickness doesn't go away. Day after day, she cries out, "Lord, please heal my child." But the silence remains. Her faith tells her to keep believing, but her heart breaks a little more each morning when the miracle still hasn't come. Then there is the man who is buried under the weight of financial chains. He works until his body is exhausted. He counts coins instead of blessings. And still he kneels every night asking God for provision. "Lord, just open one door. Just send one opportunity. Just give me a way out." But the bills keep piling up. The creditors keep calling, and he feels abandoned. He has heard the verses that promise abundance, but when he looks at his empty wallet, all he feels is despair, and the silence of heaven becomes louder than any sermon he has ever heard. And what about the young woman who dreams of love? She prays for a partner. She prays for a family. She prays for someone who will hold her hand through life. She pours out her heart to God, asking for someone to walk with her in faith. But years go by, relationships fail, loneliness grows, and her prayers seem unanswered. She starts to believe she is invisible, not just to men, but to God himself. "Lord, do you see me? Do you hear me? Am I not worthy of love?" The silence becomes her companion, and loneliness whispers lies louder than the promises of God. You see, unanswered prayer is not just about words not reaching heaven. It's about the pain that grows in the heart when God's silence feels unbearable. It is the fear that maybe you are forgotten. Maybe you are not chosen. Maybe your faith is not strong enough. The silence of God is not empty. It screams with doubts. It echoes with questions. It digs deep into the soul. And the worst part? Many people suffer this in secret. In church, they lift their hands and smile, but in the secret place of their room, they collapse. Their knees are bruised from prayer, but their heart is bruised from silence. And if you are listening right now and feeling that this is your story, you are not alone. This silence has touched millions. The mother, the man, the young woman, they are reflections of so many who feel abandoned in their prayers. But I want to tell you something. The silence of God does not mean the absence of God. There is something deeper happening, something hidden that explains why some prayers never break through. That's why you cannot stop here. You cannot give up, and you must keep listening. Because when you finally understand this mystery, your life of prayer will never be the same again. Tell me in the comments if you've ever felt this silence, because many carry this pain and think they are alone. Just write, "I know this silence." And let's bring light to the places that have been dark for too long. They told us, every prayer works, every prayer is heard, every cry moves the heart of God. But deep down, you know that's not true. If it were, why are there so many unanswered prayers? Why do so many people pray and yet never see change? Why does the silence of God echo louder than the promises we were taught? This is the hidden truth about prayer that almost no one wants to admit. Not every prayer works. Not every prayer is heard. And if you don't understand why, you will keep repeating empty words, waiting for answers that will never come. The question is not if God hears, because of course he can hear. He is almighty. He is omnipresent. Nothing escapes his eyes. The real question is, what does God choose to hear, and what does he refuse to hear? That is where the mystery of unanswered prayers lies. Think for a moment about what Scripture itself reveals. In the book of Psalms it says, "If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me." That means there are prayers that stop before they ever reach heaven. Prayers that are blocked not by distance, not by volume, but by the condition of the heart. This is not something we like to hear, but it is written. The hidden truth is that prayer is not magic. It is not a formula. It is not about saying words in the right order. It is about alignment with God, about purity of intention, about truth flowing from the inside out. How many times have people been told, just pray and everything will change? And yet, many pray without forgiveness in their heart. Many pray while holding on to bitterness, anger, jealousy, or pride. Many pray for things that are against the will of God. asking not for what brings life, but for what feeds their own desires. And then they wonder, why does heaven remain silent? Why does God not answer me? Because the truth is this: there are prayers that God will never respond to, not because He does not love us, but because those prayers are rooted in the wrong soil. You cannot plant seeds of hatred and expect a harvest of blessing. You cannot pray with lips that say, "Lord, I love you," while your heart is filled with unforgiveness, and expect heaven to open. This is the side of prayer that almost no one teaches. The uncomfortable truth. The truth that explains why prayers fail. The reason why many people cry for years without results. And maybe, just maybe, this is why you are here today. Because deep inside you know that something has been wrong. You have felt the silence. You have asked yourself, why does nothing move? Why does nothing change? Why does God not answer me? And the answer is beginning to take shape. It is not that God ignores you. It is not that He is absent. It is not that He doesn't care. It is that He has already established the principles of prayer, and He will not break His own word. He cannot contradict Himself, and His word says clearly that there are prayers He will not hear. This realization is shocking, but it is also liberating, because once you understand it, you stop wasting your energy on empty cries, and you begin to unlock the kind of prayer that really works, the prayer that shakes heaven, the prayer that God delights to answer. And that is where we are going next, because in just a moment, you will discover the exact type of prayer that God never ignores, the prayer that carries power, the prayer that transforms silence into breakthrough. And here lies the secret hidden in plain sight, the truth that explains why so many prayers never break through. God is not deaf. He is not absent. He has not turned His back on you. But there are certain prayers He chooses not to hear. This is the "this" that the title spoke of, the revelation that changes everything. The Word of God says clearly, "If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear me." Psalm 66:18. That means when there is sin, when there is bitterness, when the heart is full of resentment, unforgiveness, or hidden pride, the prayer stops before it ever reaches the throne of God. Think about it. How can we expect the Almighty to listen to a request for blessing if our own heart is still chained by hatred? How can we ask for mercy if we refuse to show mercy? Many people pray for breakthrough, but they carry grudges from the past. They kneel down with words of faith, but deep inside they are still holding on to the offense of what someone did years ago. And this becomes the invisible wall that blocks their voice from reaching heaven. Another reason prayers fail is because they are spoken without faith. The Bible says that without faith it is impossible to please God. Words without faith are just noise, empty echoes in the spiritual realm. Many repeat prayers like a ritual, mechanically, without conviction, without expectation, without truly believing that God will move. And those prayers rise like smoke that disappears before reaching the sky. Faith is the engine of prayer. Without it, the words fall flat. And then there are prayers that God will never answer because they are outside of His will. Prayers that come from selfish desires, from greed, from ambition disconnected from His purpose. James 4:3 says, "You ask and do not receive because you ask with wrong motives, so that you may spend it on your pleasures." These are prayers that might sound sincere, but they are rooted in the wrong soil. God cannot contradict Himself. He will not bless what leads you away from Him. This is the painful but liberating truth. God's silence was never His absence. It was a mirror showing the heart that needed to change. The silence was an invitation, not rejection. An invitation to look inside, to forgive who hurt you, to release bitterness, to throw away pride, to believe again, to align your requests with His purpose. The silence was God saying, "I am here, but before I give you what you are asking, I want to heal what is inside you." When you realize this, everything changes. Suddenly, unanswered prayers are not a punishment, but a chance for transformation. The silence becomes a school. The waiting becomes preparation. And when the heart finally surrenders, when you choose forgiveness instead of resentment, when you choose faith instead of doubt, when you choose His will instead of your own, that is when heaven opens. That is when God's presence floods in. That is when the prayer that works rises like fire and touches the very heart of the Creator. Maybe this is why you are listening right now, because you know there are wounds you have carried for too long. You know there are doubts you never admitted out loud. You know there are prayers you made, not because you wanted God's will, but because you wanted your will. And today, the silence is calling you to let go, to surrender, to realign your heart. Because when the heart changes, the prayer changes. And when the prayer changes, the answers come. If this is speaking to you, don't ignore it. Write in the comments right now, "I will pray with truth." Write it as a declaration, as a decision. Because from today forward, your prayer will no longer be empty words, but living fire that heaven cannot ignore. From today, you will never pray the same way again, because now you know, not every prayer works. Not every cry moves the heart of God, but the one that comes from a clean heart, the one that is born in truth, the one that is aligned with His will and filled with faith. That prayer shakes heaven itself. That prayer breaks the silence. That prayer carries weight in the spiritual world. And when that kind of prayer rises, nothing can stop the answer from coming. Imagine with me what happens when forgiveness enters your heart. The bitterness that once blocked your words begins to dissolve. The anger that once poisoned your prayers is replaced with peace. And suddenly, your voice does not echo back to you anymore. It travels directly to the throne of God. The silence you once felt is broken by a whisper that says, "I hear you. I am with you." This is the power of prayer that works. Think of the man who was drowning in debt and despair. For years he prayed, asking God for money, for provision, for wealth, but he carried resentment against those who wronged him, and his requests came from a place of anger and self-interest. When he let go, when he chose to forgive, when he asked not just for money, but for wisdom to walk in God's will, something shifted. The opportunities he thought would never come began to open. The same prayer he had prayed for years suddenly had power, because now it came from a changed heart. Or think of the woman who longed for love. She cried night after night, asking God to send someone to fill the loneliness in her soul. But she prayed from a place of fear, not faith. She asked for someone to prove her worth, instead of asking God to reveal His purpose for her life. When she shifted, when she prayed, "Lord, prepare me to be the person you want me to be. Align me with your will," peace filled her heart. And soon after, love came. Not because she begged, but because her prayer aligned with heaven's design. And what about the mother who watched her child suffer? She had prayed for healing, but in her pain, she doubted if God even cared. Then one night, she prayed differently. "Lord, I trust you, whether the healing comes now or later. Give me strength, give me faith, let your will be done." And in that surrender, she felt something she had not felt before: peace. Her child's healing was still a process, but she was no longer crushed by the silence. She knew she was heard. She knew God was near. And soon breakthrough began to manifest. This is the awakening. This is the moment when your prayer life transforms forever. Because now you see that God's silence was not rejection. It was preparation. It was a call to rise higher, to let go of the chains inside, to speak with faith and truth. From today forward, your words will not be empty. Your cries will not bounce off the ceiling. Your prayers will carry the weight of heaven. But if not every prayer is heard, then listen carefully. Not everyone who even reads the Bible is truly blessed. That's a shocking truth. But in the next video, I will show you why. Because it's not about how many verses you read, but how deeply the Word transforms you. And before we continue, I want to ask you something. If this message touched your heart, if you are ready to leave behind the prayers that don't work and step into the kind of prayer that heaven cannot ignore, write it in the comments right now. I'm ready. Write it as a declaration. Write it as a decision. Write it as your next step. Because when you put it in words, you activate faith. And faith is the language that God always hears. If in this message you felt the voice of God speaking to you, then this is your moment to act. Subscribe now to this channel, activate the bell, and don't miss the next message, because your spiritual awakening has just begun. Each video here is a step of transformation. Each word a seed that can change your destiny. And if you know someone who prays and feels abandoned by God, don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with them today. You might be the answer they have been waiting for. If you stayed until the very end, I want to know who you are. Write in the comments right now, "God spoke to me." Let those words be your declaration of faith, your testimony that heaven is moving in your life. And if this video touched you, don't forget to hit the like button, because every like tells YouTube that this message must be spread to more people who need to hear the truth about prayer that God never hears, about the power of prayer, about unanswered prayers, about spiritual awakening, and about prosperity in prayer. And now, don't stop here. Your journey is just beginning. Click on the next video that is appearing on your screen right now because what I will reveal there will open your eyes even more. Remember, not everyone who even reads the Bible is truly blessed, and you need to know why. Watch it now, and let the transformation continue.